March 28th, 2022, Rules and Public Policy Meeting. In front of you, you will find an agenda which may or may not have everything that we need to talk about, but we'll figure this out together. So the first thing I have down is the meeting minutes, which I've been promising for months and months and months, but I promise you I will get them completed one of these days. And we'll figure all of that out.
Really quickly, do you have a digital copy of your agenda, just so I can make the minutes on there, if that makes sense, like make a copy of that?
Yeah, that you can just type right onto the agenda. I do. However, what I'm going to tell you is that I've done something to my OneDrive. So it now does not.
You sound like Mary
connect.
Dewald.
It doesn't connect to, and it's something I've done. It has nothing to do with Outlook.
No, you're
nothing
fine.
to do with anything the city has done. It's just completely me.
Do you have
I've
OneDrive
done
with any of your
something.
other jobs?
Huh?
Do you have OneDrive with any of your other jobs?
No, you know I'm self-employed. So
Oh,
it's just
okay.
me. I messed
I
it
just,
up.
because mine always asks me if I want to sync my real job to this job, and that's why I didn't know if that's what you had going on.
No.
Okay.
No.
I will just,
It was something that I did.
Okay.
Because I was trying to be a computer tech person, which I am not. So
I will just make like a
I'm very sorry.
regular, you're okay, like a regular old Word document.
Well,
And then if you just want to go back later and you can like copy and paste it or send it to me and I'll
Okay.
copy and paste it all pretty.
Okay, I will do that. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Hi, Arias.
Hi.
So, yeah,
Hello, everyone.
okay. Tenant legislation. What I would like to tell you is that we live in I'm having a really cynical day today.
No, please do, you're
So,
okay.
what I would like to Mr. Mosby sent an email
I
about
saw that.
something that
So, hold
I
on,
already
before
knew
you,
about.
I don't want you to go on an unnecessary tangent. So, in my committee, I'm actually gonna suggest that we go a different route that's not
Oh.
legislative wise.
Okay, there you go.
Yeah, so I just didn't want you to waste your breath.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I just wanna, we
But I would
obviously
love
the-
your 2 cents too, if you wanna give them to me.
Yeah, the judges have decided that
Yeah,
they're not honoring any of it.
yeah. Well, even before that, I had talked to Kathy Fisher. She had some really good ideas. We have some money in the area of development that we can't use for something else that we now have to use for something else. So it's a long story, but next month I will try to explain it all well. But yeah, I agree. I'm thinking of we should go a different language, a different route
Okay,
than
so
legislation.
For now, we'll permanently table that because it's just, I don't think it's a battle that
No.
little old North College Hill should pick, but, your 2 cents, everybody?
I can't tell you that I read the email. Sorry, I had a
did.
busy day.
I was gonna ask, I don't even know, is that lawful?
No,
It doesn't
No.
even feel lawful, like, I don't necessarily think that because Cincinnati is not, well, Hamilton County is not honoring what laws were passed in Cincinnati, that North College Hill needs to yet pass that law, but, I definitely know that there was some opposition by the one the renter, she's a landlord to many properties, and she talked about some of the things that may not work for our people. But I guess I just am engaging in the conversation because if imposing something like that, or, passing legislation for something like that would help clean up some of the things that our landlords are doing,
Right.
it would create a more selective or streamline the kinds of landlords that we get. And I'm for that, because we definitely need to do something on a 360 level at approaching how we can discourage slumlords.
well, okay.
And we had talked about that in CIC, and they're doing some things, but what can we as council and the committees do, to push it up to
As far as
council?
that. What I will tell you is that at one point, you know, the federal government had put a moratorium on evictions altogether. However, in Hamilton County, evictions just kept
Oh, yeah, I
chugging
remember
through.
that. I saw
You
that
know,
on the news.
They kind of do what they want to down there.
Right. Well, and I think too, like, I mean, I think Kathy Fisher and a few other people have brought this up. I mean,
That was the person I was speaking
yeah.
to, Ms.
I mean,
Fisher.
it's kind of hard. Right now, we're having a head-to-head of sorts of enforcing other laws that are normal across all cities and all states and all counties and all countries. So how are we supposed to get, you know, enforcement of this law that's kind of not as normal? I don't know. I mean, I think that there are a lot of pros and cons to it. I agree. I think that I would love it if we attracted more ethical building owners. I would love that. But I also don't want to, you know, make people like Kathy Fisher not want to own property here and rent it out, because I know that she is a ethical person. It seems to me that her renters really respect her. So I think we're stuck between a rock and a hard place. But
So I'm gonna say this. I'm gonna just say it. I support Ms. Fisher in everything that she's done. I think she
yeah.
has been denoted as a really good landlord.
Mhm.
However, if I had to choose, I'm gonna choose in the way of what encourages home ownership, period. Whether you're a good landlord or not, because our city needs that.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's where we have to, as kind of in this group, focus. Like, what are we trying to encourage here?
And I'll 100% back you on that.
Yeah.
But I don't think any city will ever get to 100% home ownership. So you just have to find the cream of the crop for the rentals, not the rental owners, not the renters.
Yeah. I don't think there's
Yeah.
anything wrong with having renters.
No.
I just think it's about having a good relationship between the renters and the city and the landlords
Yeah.
and the homeowners and everything else. And I definitely agree. I want us to keep looking at something that'll aid in that healthy relationship, but I also don't want to be stepping into private businesses area.
The other thing that I think is interesting is, have you guys seen, like, on the news that the rent is like skyrocketing through? So we're gonna need
Right.
to really, like, look at this and make some decisions on it, because that's one of the issues that we have, is that our not so good landlords have their rent up high, and they're already at the top of their margins. They're not keeping up with the properties. And so we don't want to encourage that any further.
I agree with that. I think that there are, you know, many reasons why people rent instead of owning. And there are a lot of apartments too in North College Hill that we have to think about. I just don't know what the answer is.
Yeah.
Whatever we do, I want it to be effective. I don't want us to do something because, you know, we've done something, it makes us feel better, but it's not really addressing the issue.
Right, exactly.
So I know that there are monies out there to help people, but again, helping people pay the exorbitant rents doesn't really help fix the properties or fix the
Right.
problems.
Or fix the community, yeah.
Right,
Well,
so,
and that's what, I mean, so, okay, well, I'll just go ahead and say it so it makes more sense. So the Homeowners Assistance Fund was set up improperly. And the way that it was set up is unlawful. The city cannot give individual funds to individual people based on anything. We would have to do it through a third party like the CIC.
But we never have.
But we never have done that, no. That
So
was-
we've
no, no,
never
no, no,
done
no, no,
anything
no.
unlawful.
We have not done anything
Okay.
unlawful, but
Alright.
the plan was originally set up
Yes.
in a way that would be executed unlawfully. It was not executed. Mr. Dieters and I had a long talk, and anyway. But anyway, so
Possible to set it up
appropriately?
So, okay, so the way that we would have set it up appropriately is by giving these funds to the CIC, and then the CIC would decide who gets what money. My personal opinion is, why would we give money to the CIC when there are plenty of things that we as a city need money for around home ownership and rental, retention, and all that kind of stuff? Why would we give it to a third party to decide what to do with when there are plenty of things that we would need that money for? So with the home ownership retention and with the renters retention, because that's the issue around renting, is that when you get renters who are transient, that's when you end up having the bad renters, the ones who don't care about the property and don't get involved in the community. Where if you have high retention with renters, and there's the people who are gonna want to get involved and gonna want to get a job or go to events or volunteer. So, and since we're also needing money for the welcome packets, and Kathy Fisher also mentioned putting something in the welcome packets about financial help for renters and people to reach out to if you are facing eviction and all that kind of stuff. My thought was put that money that was going to go to the Homeowners Assistance Fund into instead the welcome packets. In that welcome packets, put stuff like, and here's a contact you can go to for, like I said, eviction or rent help, or here's the contacts for the all the things that we were originally talking about for the welcome packet, plus more now to help with retention and with financial stuff and all that kind of jazz.
Retention of whom?
Retention of renters and homeowners.
So I don't agree. And the reason I don't is because the other one solely supports home ownership. That's our biggest bucket or issue. I don't know, you do not go to the CIC meetings. And if you look at that map, which is in that office of.
But, sorry, I don't want to interrupt you, but I think it's also important too, if we get long-term renters, they're eventually going to want to buy a home. If they already have roots in North College Hill, if they're already invested in the community, they're going to be more likely to buy in North College Hill, right?
Truth.
So that's where I'm kind of also coming at it from. And on top of it, I don't think that having renters in North College Hill is bad. I think what ends up getting a bad name is when we have a lot of people coming in and out constantly. But I do know that
So I don't disagree with that at all. You're right. There's nothing wrong with renters. I was a renter in North College Hill for 8 years. The issue is the large population of landlords who are scrupulous in their renting practices. Right. And because North College Hill happens to be a target neighborhood and community and city for people who buy properties because our homes are affordable, we don't want those people getting the homes. So we need to help incentivize people who would buy here. And bad landlords don't create opportunities for people to buy. They don't want to let go of those properties. And that is also what creates a more transient population because they can't afford the rent. Their properties are not being kept up. So people keep moving in and out. They're a part of that dynamic that we're trying to avoid, all that affects all the way down to our school district. So as a strategic focus, for our city as a whole, I think our focus right now, because we have a problem with renters, not renters, we have a problem with bad landlords. We need to focus right now on building up our home ownership population. That's the only reason I don't agree. I have nothing against renters. I think it's just the time dispensation that we're in and what we're facing in our dynamic right now.
But I think too, if you build up.
Can I jump in for a quick
Yeah.
second? I'm sorry. But I think, I agree with everything you said.
Yeah.
But I think you're still leaning towards we want to give money to homeowners or incentivize and supplement with that fund. And I think we just can't do that. We have to find a whole different way to do it.
Right, and she said go through the CIC.
But if
I
we
don't
go
see
through
that
the
as being a
CIC, We don't
problem.
have control over who gets that money. We don't have control over how they spend it. We don't have control over who they give it to. We don't have control, like, so they could decide, you know what, actually, we changed our minds, we're gonna give it to business owners.
So we can't,
Or we're gonna buy a business
Yeah,
we can't
building.
put stipulations on the funds?
I don't think so, because it would basically be like a donation, is how Mr. Dieters
Oh.
expressed it to me. But on top of that too, I mean, like, long term, if you create those roots and you create that sense of community and that sense of communication with things like welcome packets and a well-organized website and well-informed citizens, I think that that will lead to people wanting to be here. I think that a lot of the reasons people don't like it here is they don't feel like anything happens here because they don't know what is actually happening here. I mean, there was just like a business opening on the corner of Hamilton and Galbraith this weekend. I didn't know about it until I literally drove past it. It was like a new like yoga studio, salon, like natural, like it was super cool. Something like it was really cool. But I didn't even know about it until I drove past it. But I think if there's better communication put into place,
I
like
know
with
where
a
you're at.
welcome packet, yeah. It's like right by that like daycare area across from the But anyway, I think that if we want to, there are already things that we need to be spending money on. I know that this kind of sidetracked, but instead of doing something like legislation, maybe giving people the power so if they do have a nasty landlord who is breaking the laws, they have a phone number to go to and say, hey, my landlord's doing this. Is this okay? I don't know. Doesn't mean a lot of people don't know. Or if they have a nonprofit they can contact and say, hey, I'm really struggling with my rent this month. My landlord just raised it. Is there somebody I can contact? I don't know.
So
I
basically
would-
resources.
What I would
Yeah.
like to do then, is just refer this entire issue to the Community Development Committee.
Okay.
And that way, we're not both
Yes, I agree.
talking,
Yeah. Sorry, I just wanted
No
to
wills,
put more
no.
context to the
yeah.
conversation.
I mean,
'cause I
yeah,
felt like I was walking around
I just, I don't, I mean, I think it's wonderful that everybody
Yeah.
wants to address the issue, but if we could,
Oh, for sure.
so I'm just going to then send this just to your committee, and we will, and of course, I'll do whatever I can to help, but I think
No, you're fine.
we'll have to figure out how to address the issue for sure. Okay. Parking.
Okay,
Oh,
so
boy.
sorry, I just want to give you a little bit of context on this as well.
Mhm.
So at the last meeting, Ron, we were talking about this, and we were basically saying, oh, remember when we talked about this a couple months ago, and we realized that we are all fine with our parking legislation, and that's just not being enforced? Well, Ron came back last meeting and said that Chief Strand wants us to review all of the parking legislation because to him, it's not clear of if he's supposed to be enforcing it or if code enforcement's supposed to be enforcing it. And I said, well, that's silly because it says in there that it is a criminal offense, and wouldn't criminal, I mean, I'm not a lawyer, but I know you are, isn't criminal supposed to be with the police? That wouldn't be code. And he said, I don't know. And I was like, okay, well, so anyway, that's basically where we are on parking legislation.
So in other words, the police are not going to enforce the ordinances, which, surprise, surprise. So what I will tell you is that, in this wonderful world that we live in, if judges don't enforce things,
Right.
unfortunately, what do?
Right.
If police officers don't enforce things, I don't know. So it's not code enforcement.
No.
A code enforcement officer does not write a ticket for a parking infraction
Right.
ever. And if they did, I would love that as a lawyer, because, man, I'm suing somebody.
Right.
So that's not how things go, so.
Well, and I was talking with one of the code enforcement people, and they said that they are having similar frustrations because they are feeling like the police are expecting them to enforce things that they legally have no grounds in. And so I said, I know we have the same frustration because they're coming to us claiming that our legislation isn't clear when it's plenty clear to everybody else. So
So if we go through it, then we just say, your responsibility to enforce it, then they just have to do it, right?
But they're claiming that it's that according to our legislation, it's not clear if it's their responsibility or not.
So
Okay,
are
so
they
then-
bringing specific ones to us, or do we have to bring them to
Mr. Mosby
them?
was supposed to tonight, but he's not here.
Okay, he asked me if I wanted him to be here for this meeting, and I
Oh.
said no. So that's why he's not here at this meeting, but I know he'll be at the next meeting. So
Yeah.
I guess
Okay.
what we can do is we can follow up with why our
What's not
police
clear.
officers are not clear on
Yeah.
what their jobs are. I
That's
don't
what
know.
we asked like literally 1 month ago. And Mr. Mosby said, I'm not sure which ones he's talking about. I'll make sure that I have them for the next meeting.
Okay.
I know,
I
very-
wasn't here, so
No,
I
it's
probably
not-
should have watched it.
It's
but I'm
not your fault.
I'm thoroughly confused.
Oh,
So
we were too.
they believe that the ordinances, like the laws,
Yes.
are enforced by
Code enforcement.
code enforcement, which are individuals that we just hire off the
Mhm.
street who have no training whatsoever. So they what?
You are just as confused as we were 1 month ago.
Can we just put this one on the back burner until we hear
Right.
back from them? Because
Clarifica-
other we're just
clarity.
gonna
Right.
talk in
spin our
circles.
wheels, right?
Because we
okay.
don't have any.
So we need clarity. Also, I don't need clarity. What about anybody talk about like just painting lines on the streets in front of the houses?
Yeah.
In front of houses?
Yeah,
Did we?
Just,
like on the street, like you know how like out here on Galbraith, how there's like the lines painted like outside of SWAT and St. Mary and stuff, like doing that on like
Oh.
resident. We did talk about that, not at the last meeting, because the only thing that we got to talking about was, it was pretty much the conversation was shut down once Mr. Mosby told us that the police didn't know what laws they were supposed to enforce, and then the conversation was basically like, okay, well, I don't know what that means, and then we moved on.
okay, so what if what do you guys think about that? Like putting lines on residential streets?
To designate parking spaces?
Mm-hmm.
I think we.
I don't care one way or the other. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't have a parking situation in my neighborhood, so I really don't feel like I have.
I don't have
Skin
a
in
parking.
this game.
I was saying,
Right.
I'm gonna be honest, I don't have a parking situation on my street. Anytime we do, we're very neighborly. We'll knock on people's doors, figure out what the problem is, and just fix it amongst ourselves
Us
without
too.
any
Yeah.
frustration.
Well, that
But
seems to be, that's what we do on my street too. However,
But if I had an opinion about the lines, so there's also beautification. I'm just not for it. It just looks kind of cheesy. And when you look at nicer neighborhoods, they don't have lines on their street. I mean, they just don't. So that's
right.
a very shallow reason.
Well, I think too.
Madam Chair, it's kind of odd because on my street, which is Lois, certain in front of the houses, sometimes you can get one car there and sometimes you can get two cars there. So lines all the way down the street wouldn't really work because it just depends on how long the vehicle is and if you can get two cars there.
Actually, but in some instances, that might help, so that one person doesn't park right in the middle and take up two
Right.
spots.
That's about the only
So it
issues
could-
that we have.
It could solve some of the issues.
But what if your car can't fit in one of the spots? Do you
Then
have
park
to,
it in your driveway.
what if what if it's a guest? Like if, one of the big Tahoes or something and they're over,
But I think too,
they're over the line, then do they get a ticket because they're not in the parking parameters?
you do in the city of Oxford, I got one.
If they're,
Yeah,
Yes.
if they're blocking a
Oxford
driveway,
is-
they would, that's for
Oxford
sure.
is very good about that kind
yeah,
of
they're
thing.
mean. I've gotten 2 parking tickets in Oxford.
That's
Never
'cause
going to
the
that school again.
College
Clearly, you
students
didn't
are
learn your
there.
lesson.
No, I did not.
Oxford is very beautiful, by the way, and they
It
have,
is.
It's beautiful.
And they-
She
and they
just,
have lines
They have
everywhere. Like
very
this
good
is
police
where,
officers, that's
yes.
for sure.
and this is where you park. And if you delineate from that parking, park too long, or park outside the lines.
I took a
Ticket.
picture, mine was this far past the line.
Yeah, ticket,
I'm
yes.
not kidding you. It was only just this much my bumper.
It was the, I was thinking.
But either way, right.
Somebody come out and hit your bumper. I've gotten that ticket in Clifton when I was in college too,
Yeah.
so I get it.
I think if there is some extra money that comes around and Mr. Mosby's like, hey, there's some extra money in beautification, I think it's a great thing to bring up. But I just feel like, I don't know how much it would even cost. Like,
Why
is it
would you
something
think
we
that
can
that's a
even afford?
beautification thing though?
But what
Well, if
about?
it's something in
Beautification
law,
money.
like something, you know what I
Okay,
mean?
but
Anything.
what about, we don't have to do it on every street, right?
Oh,
Just
yeah.
the street, just the streets where we know there are issues.
There you go.
And it's probably, I hate to say it, it's probably the ones down by your neck of the woods where,
It's such, yeah. It's similar like my street. We have similar streets. People always park like in the middle instead of parking one and one.
yeah.
We just go over and we're like, hey, would you
You're
mind pulling up a
hanging.
little bit?
You're hanging in my
Thanks.
driveway, it's hard for me to get out.
Yeah.
That's the main problem.
Right.
Yeah, I can't get out my driveway.
It's just a thought, and it, I mean, I might be oversimplifying this again, but it just seems to me like all we need is the right kind of paint to paint on the ground. I don't know.
I would say they use the same paint that they use to paint the lines, wouldn't it?
Right, I
Right.
mean, it just seems fairly simple, like they have stencils and everything.
Oh, yeah. I think it's more about,
What if,
I think it's more about manpower and getting Public Works to do
hang
it.
on,
Oh, okay.
what if after we repave all these streets, we put lines on them and the engineers do it?
Yeah, so it's all the new streets get it.
The new streets get the lines, yeah,
Yeah.
that's a thought. That's a good
The
idea.
street gets paved, you also have
Yeah,
parking.
Parking lines, right,
I like that idea.
I like that
I
too.
like that. That works.
We can all agree on something. We actually agree pretty well.
And it was a Mary Jo idea, that's the crazy
I know.
part.
Paving streets, I like it. Okay.
I'm sure it could go right in that same bundle.
Yeah, I would think
Against
so
the
too,
bid.
and again, it's
Yeah.
just,
Right, yeah.
it's paint, and I don't know, I'm probably oversimplifying it some kind of way. Somebody will make it complicated for us,
Oh, don't
but
worry.
we'll.
But that's the one, it'll be the cleanest, the most, it's the perfect timing.
Right, to just add it.
Yeah.
But it's
Yep.
just helping when you do it.
Okay. All right, so now I just have old business. Does anybody else have any other old business?
I just have a question
Sure.
about a category. And this, I'm not sure which category, it might be the next meeting. What does the, impound lot, what committee is that under?
Public safety, probably.
Okay, thank you, that's it, thank you.
Although that is a good, do we need to have any new laws for that?
Oh, okay, exactly what about the impound lot? I should probably clarify that. What is
The-
it about the impound lot?
There, I noticed last week that there was a lot of senior, not senior, citizens, not senior citizens, North College Hill residents commenting
Oh,
on
yeah, I
the
saw that.
impound lot on North College Hill Talk. It's like, well, I hate to say this, but what I'm learning is that if you, usually no one attends the meeting, but if you, I'm gonna make a habit to check that website weekly, just to see
What
what opinion, North College Hill Talk.
It's on Facebook.
It's
not
on
a website,
Facebook, I'm
a
sorry, it's on
page.
Facebook, but I'm gonna try to check that weekly just to see, what the residents, citizens are talking about.
That thing is toxic.
Yeah, but still, I was able to, get some ideas about what the citizens think about it.
You mean
So-
what some of the citizens?
Right,
Yeah,
right,
that's,
maybe like 20 to 25, not that many,
Right.
out of, I guess, 9,000, you're right. But it at least gives you an idea, because half the time we don't get input, but it gives you an idea.
We are in the same place every Monday at the same time.
Come see
Same-
us, whoever's
same
out there,
place,
come
same
see us
time.
on Monday
Come-
nights.
Come see us.
Yeah.
We're always here.
Sometimes we make
Every Monday.
jokes. Sometimes I wear cool earrings. You guys will
Yes.
see a lot.
Yes.
But it's just like people talk Seems like they talk so much more freely
No, yeah, I
on
agree.
the public website. So
Right,
at
where
least we
there,
do
where there
have
are no cameras and, you
Right.
know, sunlight, lights,
Nobody is able to
Right.
talk back.
right.
But yeah, no,
Yeah, okay.
I saw
Nancy.
the same, I saw the
You
same
saw it
post,
too?
yeah.
Yeah, but at least I know how some of the citizens, you got a point, feel about the impound lot.
I,
Really quickly before we
It's
go
on
into-
the track. It's already rolling.
before we go into old business, do you want me to just give you a rundown of what we talked about last meeting?
sure.
Can I stay on that? Would you be the one to follow up with Chief Strand to see if we need any legislation for the impound lot?
Yes, I would. I'll do that.
We'll definitely need some legislation for it.
Impound lot.
The next
I mean,
meeting,
it
that's why
might
I
just
asked.
already exist and you don't need anything, but
Sorry.
just checking. Sorry, Marjorie, I cut you off.
No, you're fine.
Okay. I'm gonna put that under action items. Ask a question and wait for an answer. Because that works well for us. Okay. I'm gonna stop that. I'm gonna stop with the snarky comments. See,
Love
that's
it.
why you should come to the meetings.
All right.
So, we have, a lot of old business there. Legislative procedure. So that was something that Matt kind of, brought up for us, and I think that we should just kind of follow our rules. But, input from everybody else.
I don't see legislative procedures on here.
Under 5, old business?
Under old business.
Can I make it?
Are you looking at the rules in public policy?
Oh,
Agenda.
no.
Can I make a comment on this real quick? So last week, this is where we talked about that document that I sent you. That's where we talked about this.
Okay, well, let's talk about that again.
Ms. Orr, would you like to introduce it?
Only if I can see it again,
Yep,
because I
there you go.
forgot.
What?
So,
Let me make a copy of the one
This
that
was
I
a
edited.
document, I have a friend that's on city council in another city, and she said that this was a document, because I said seems to be a lot of miscommunication, and feel like I'm always asking questions, and it just ends up being a communication nightmare. So she said her city uses this, she's at Trenton, and it's basically when new legislation is brought to their council, it's also provided as this piece of documentation that says, what's the reasoning behind it? What's it for? What does it coincide with? There's a lot of information on here.
Right.
And I think it would alleviate a lot of the questioning and people feeling like there's accusations flying and you're just really trying to get background information.
Right.
I feel like this might bridge a gap that we currently have.
Okay, that makes
So
sense.
last meeting, we went through this and we reviewed it and made suggestions as to the modifications, and it looks like Marjorie made all of those modifications. Mr. Mosby was in that meeting, and he said he would welcome this document to put this
Okay.
into practice.
So we would just need to make this like a part of council rules or
Okay.
something like
Yeah.
that?
We even
That's-
talked to him about, do we need to, propose it for legislation? They said that the administration would willingly, partner with us and do it.
Yeah, he said he
Okay.
doesn't feel that there's a need for any legislation for it because they'll willingly do it because they feel like it'll help them as well.
So what do we think?
I thought thought they were pretty amiable. We can give
Okay.
them give them an opportunity to fulfill the commitment.
Yeah, and if
Okay.
they don't, then we pass legislation.
Or maybe still needs to be tweaked. I mean, who knows? I mean, it's something
He was gonna
new.
look at it too,
Yeah.
right?
Okay,
that's
it
right.
seems kinda neat, it really just seems very, like it would really solve some problems for us. City
Yeah,
council
it's just
legislation
supplemental
staff
information
report.
kind
Yeah,
of thing.
for sure.
The way I try to like organize it is the spots where there is parentheses, a capital, and I like italicize it, capitalize it, and put it in parentheses. That's what they have to fill out,
Okay,
or that's what we would have to fill out. So if I'm presenting legislation to a committee, not, you know, the administration, then I would fill this out. And then if city community development and recreation, you know, is backing this, then we would fill part of it out too, that kind of stuff. So it wouldn't just be Ron or Mayor Nichols doing it as well, if that
Okay.
makes sense. But yeah, they would fill out the stuff like at the top, like expenditures, budget, that kind of stuff. But I
Okay.
mean, that top middle box, that would all be filled out after. I don't know if that gives any explanation.
After passing our bill,
okay, that makes sense. I like it. I still think maybe we should put it in the rules.
We could certainly put it in rules.
Yeah,
There's no problem with that.
I don't have any objection to that.
Okay, all right. Okay, so let's,
try it out to see,
I would love to try it out, so,
try it out first,
um,
see how it's working, if we like it, and then put it in the rules.
That's what I think too.
Yeah.
Only because we may change it
Exercise.
right,
as we see, like, this isn't really working, or
Right.
this is working.
That's what I was thinking.
So I would want to give it a little bit of trial and error,
Okay,
because we're
alright.
still all kind of new.
Mhm.
And
Everybody's
to see if what we get is what we're hoping to get.
right. Okay, I agree, so let's do that, and so we'll give this a trial run. And I'm assuming you have a digital version of this that you,
I do. And then I know that there's a way, and maybe somebody who's better at technology than me, I know there's a way where I could make this like a PDF where the only parts that they can change are certain parts, if that makes sense.
right,
As right now, it's just a Word document that if you want to fill this out, you would have to change everything about it. Or you could change everything about it if you wanted to. So, I don't know, let me talk to a couple people who are better at that kind of stuff than me.
I can
and I'll
help
try
you
to
with
figure it
that.
you would just make it a fillable form.
out. Right, I'm not sure how to, does anybody know how to do that?
I do.
Awesome, I'm
Okay.
gonna send it to you. And that's all you, girl. Hope you didn't mind volunteering for that.
Wait a minute.
Never mind.
She was like, no.
Oops.
She was
The
like, I
second
can
you
help.
say
did not
you
mean
had
to
something,
speak
you're
out there.
all on it.
How about I show you how to do it? No,
Teach 'em
I'll
to
do it.
fish.
That
Teach 'em to
honestly works
fish.
if you want to do that. Either way, I'll still send it to everybody. That way, everybody has the digital copy. But
Can you also send it to Mr. Hedger?
yes. Anybody else? I already sent it to Erica and Mary Jo. Mary Jo, do you want me to resend it to you?
I only did
Yeah,
it once.
and
I'll take a
just
copy.
as a caveat, I only have
So I have
Nitro.
it.
You don't have what?
I only have Nitro.
I don't know what that means.
It's a different name brand of PDF.
So it's not Adobe.
It's on
Yes.
Okay. Would that still be compatible with Adobe though?
That's why I'm saying that, because
Okay.
sometimes it's not.
And most people have,
Adobe.
Adobe.
Most people have
Yep.
Adobe.
Okay.
It's supposed to work. They do communicate, and
Mhm.
they're both, but it doesn't. It's not fluid.
Well, I have Adobe on my personal computer, so if you want, we can try it out. If you want to, like, do your thing on Nitro and then send it to me, and I can see if I can even fill it out on Adobe. Okay, cool.
Okay.
don't do the whole form, just do 1 or 2 lines and then send it to her, and then
See
in
if
case
it
it's
works.
wasting
See
your
if it
time.
works.
Yeah.
Right. Okay, what about, council rules?
We did not discuss the next three things. I didn't want to discuss summer session because you have a much larger opinion than that on any of us do. So I wanted to make sure you got your 2 cents in. And then for council rules and then the process, we just ran out of time.
I see the benefit of summer session now. I didn't see it before, and here's why. I just, there was, I don't know, I don't want to call it burnout, but that's what it was. That's what it is. It's just
I was just
burnout.
getting ready to say, I at first was like, oh, I don't care, but being here a little bit longer, I need it.
I think so.
After
So
that
my
winter
opinion is-
session,
Yeah, we
and the
just,
budget and all the
All the
things that
extra
come with it.
meetings.
Yeah.
just the last couple of months for me was just, it was whelming. It was past, overwhelming is here. It was way down here.
Yeah.
It was whelming. I was like, I didn't quit, but, you know.
Hey, not everybody can see that.
It was whelming.
Yeah.
So I retract, so we can take this off of the agenda. We'll leave summer session as it is, unless somebody has an objection.
No, that's fine with me.
None.
I'm
Okay.
not much to rock the boat. That's fine.
You deserve a break today.
Yeah, for sure. Okay. The committee meeting and minutes and agendas, it's in there, it's in the rules, like what we're supposed to do with them. But it doesn't seem like there's a place where they're stored, or like we don't have access to it or something. I don't know what the
So
deal
let's
is
just
with that.
decide, is the chair going to post it to the website, or are we gonna post it to the website and put it in a drawer? Or let's just make a decision.
How about the chair post it to the website?
You know
Like we
what?
post the
Hang on,
agenda and
if
the
if the
minutes.
chair is doing all of the work, maybe that's the vice chair's position.
I agree.
How's
Okay,
They
that?
already take the minutes, so they already have that document there.
Right.
I
Okay.
have a question.
How's that?
This is about meeting minutes and agenda. That completed ASAP. Is that me?
No, that's me.
I know
Did you feel
I know I
accused?
owe you minutes.
No, that's me. Because I'm way behind. I have them, but I don't have a place, you know what I mean? There's no place to put them.
Right.
Okay, that's fine.
No, I usually do the minutes for this meeting and the next meeting. I volunteer to do them. I'm not the co-chair because it helps me focus on what we're talking about when I can sit here and take notes on it.
Got it.
So, I mean, and when we were doing our
Not
virtual
always.
meetings,
It-
I was typing as we were talking, because it was probably the same reason. That way I'm not like, oh, look, clouds, it's a sky,
Oh,
and
yeah.
it's pretty outside, I don't know.
Right.
So, but now I have all of these documents, and I'm like, where to put them? I don't know.
So I'll throw out my opinion. My opinion is we should have, like a file structure, I don't know if it's even there or not, on our website
Right,
that says all the committees, all 4 committees, and then underneath each committee, there should be the date and the
Right.
agendas and minutes.
absolutely.
So there is.
But hang on, but I also think that there should be a hard paper copy in there, because not everyone in the city is electronic minded.
Do we want to do an electronic copy if it's requested? I mean, not a paper copy if it's requested kind of thing?
I'm sorry,
Do we want to wait to print off paper copies until it's requested? Like if somebody comes and requests, hey, can I have the minutes for the March 28th public safety meeting? Then we can print it off. Then whoever can print it off and give it to them.
See, I think there should already be a copy in there, and they walk in there and they flip through the file, say, here it is, put it right on the copier and hand it to somebody.
That's fine. With the digital copy though, no, that's fine. I don't care. I was just suggesting. But with the digital copy though, I'm pretty sure there's a way to have. Is that mine?
I know, I'm still hearing
I
it.
put mine
That's-
on vibrate.
Oh,
That's fine. That's
sorry. I just thought I was like, am I missing 40 calls? I was thinking though, isn't there a way to like do that with like Teams or something? I don't really understand Microsoft that well. I don't use it for other than for council. But is there a way to have like a shared OneDrive?
On
Yes.
Teams, yes, there is. They're called channels.
Right. So can't we just have it that?
But even in Microsoft, the Outlook that we just got, we can do, it's a shared OneDrive where we all share a document amongst.
Yeah, we could do it either way. We could do OneDrive or on Teams.
So do we want to ask administration then to have our techie guy set up like a OneDrive thing so that they're all on there, or do we just care to have them on the website?
So I feel like if we're gonna do the paper copies here, then maybe we refrain from the website.
Really?
I
Or
think
do
we
our
should have 'em.
OneDrive.
I think we should have them in both
Both
places.
places.
I agree.
I do too.
Yeah,
And then the reason the reason I still suggest that we have like a shared OneDrive too is because I know that we're thinking of switching website things anyway, and I just wouldn't want, in the transfer of things for the digital copy to get lost, and then we had to go
Right.
through the hardship of scanning all of that, uploading it. That would be horrible.
Yep.
So I think there should still be like a shared drive, a website, and then printed copy.
So you're saying three
Yes.
separate avenues.
Which is
Is that,
fine.
no, I'm just, that was clarification. That wasn't,
Yeah, because I
Questioning.
figure, I mean, the
I don't have a problem with that
physical
at all.
copy will literally just be when we're here, we print it off, we pop it in there, and it's done. And then the electronic, I mean, all it is just drag and drop, upload.
So I don't know that it's quite that simple for the drag and drop to the website
No.
because none of us have the rights.
Well-
We don't have a login.
And I know that, I don't know if I know that there's a lot of like uproar going on right now with who does have rights, even administration side. So I don't know if they'd be willing to give us rights to upload that kind of stuff.
Well,
Okay, so then are we giving it to the clerk?
Well, we.
Because that's our only other option to get it on the
right,
website.
We have to, somebody has to have access.
I know.
So because we have to
I know the clerk
provide
does.
this.
I know Christian does.
I was gonna say,
Oh,
does the clerk
okay.
have access?
He does.
Oh, okay, well,
So then, do we want to make it co-chair's job to do shared drive, and then who's gonna keep that all organized too? Is the other thing is that needs an organization,
yeah,
So we can't just,
there
like-
definitely needs to be something there.
right? So we can't just like pop it back there and pray it gets done.
I'll do the file cabinets. Anybody want to help me?
I'll help you if you can do it this summer, cause I'll have 3 months. I'm not doing too much.
Sure. During our summer session that we still have.
Yeah, Mary Jo
We'll
and I
spend
will.
one of our Monday nights up here.
Yeah.
All right.
I can also do weekends and stuff like that, but after work hours, I'm pretty much dead on my couch. So,
Okay.
but
figure
the
it out.
weekends in the summer, I can definitely help.
Is there an anticipated timeline that council would like us to have this part done?
No,
Before we die,
Okay.
hopefully.
yes,
Before our term runs out?
Yeah.
before somebody makes it an issue.
Yeah.
Okay.
Something like that.
All right.
Right. Right, off we go. Look at that. Do we have some new business other than the impound lot that I need to check to see if, wouldn't it be funny if we would need to change the zoning for the impound lot and then code enforcement wanted to give them a hard time?
You're so funny.
She's so cynical.
I'm loving this area.
Man, have you been gone for a while?
That would be hilarious. I'm sorry.
I love it.
I have new business.
You've been storing that up.
Okay. I like it. New business.
I just want to again thank everybody for the condolences, sympathies of the passing of my mom. It's still very, very difficult for me to talk about because it was not expected. She had definitely been sick for a very long time, but death was not in that picture. And most of all, the compassion just for me. I'm definitely not myself, but I just wanted to, in each committee, we got so many flowers and acts of condolences and just compassion. We're still going through stuff, and to thank everyone, and I just want to, in all spaces, just thank you so very much. I really appreciate it. It's literally the hardest thing I've ever had to go through in my life, so
Sure.
thank you.
I'm gonna say one thing and I don't wanna cry.
It is.
It's still gonna hit you again in another month.
I
really
know,
hard.
right?
So if you get there and you need, speak for me, if you need me to do one single solitary thing for you, you let me know.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. I have had a headache since like the week before she was passing, and it goes and fades, but it goes like it's not as heavy. But I went to the doctor. I don't have any like high blood pressure or anything. Like it's a bit high, but that's just the stress. But other than that, it's just there. And then like if I smile, I actually have this bit of guilt because my heart hurts at the same time as like trying to like crack through a smile. So I'm all over the place. Truly, I'm not myself. So also forgive me because I'm a little spacey.
We do.
Right.
We you know that we love you. I
Well,
can say
thank
I
you.
love you. And just we are hurting and we feel for you. So I know that, you know, when we want to do things for you, you don't have to, but we just want to do what we can because we know we can't stop your heart from being broken, but we can, you know, if I can just, whatever I can do, you know, just let me know.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you very much. Definitely.
Any other new business?
How can we follow that up?
No? Okay, well, look at us. We are done 8 minutes early. That is exciting. Okay, so I will go ahead and adjourn our meeting, and I will see you all at 7:30 in 7 minutes, which our clock is now correct. I'm really excited about that.
Hey, it's close.
And so I'll see you all in 7 minutes.
All righty, thank you.
to the North College Hill City Council Public Safety Committee meeting for Monday, March 28th, 2022. Again, our meeting minutes will be updated as soon as possible. I think that we finally have a solution to that, so looking forward to removing this from this agenda, which it's been on the agenda forever. So I'm very excited about that. Next on our agenda is police levy legislation.
Really quick, just so you know, I'm just gonna put all of the minutes onto one document and send it to you. Is that okay? Okay.
That's perfect. Thank you. Thank
The,
you very much for your help.
Of course, fair enough.
Okay.
did you all get the note to respond back to the, investigation?
No, I didn't. I'm not gonna lie. I have not been able to open an email or anything else because it is all I can do to stay afloat with, I don't know, I've just had a lot of things going on.
Does
Like-
anybody else?
Do we wanna talk about this after?
Yeah, sure. Got it.
Is that an email?
Hmm.
Yeah, I'll tell you about it after. I just don't think it's, appropriate to talk about right now.
Okay. Alrighty, so, police levy legislation. So, first, I wanna say that I love you all. You know I love you all. And I'm not really trying to pick a fight with any of you, even you guys over there, I promise. I promise, I promise. However, let's just say, for the sake of argument, not saying that this is what's gonna happen, but let's just say for the sake of argument, Ryan says, kick rocks. I'm not answering any of y'all's questions. I'm going home and I'm gonna have a drink. Are we really not gonna do a police levy? Because it would come out of the general fund, right?
Wait, I didn't say that.
No, I'm just asking, because I'm just asking, right?
I personally, okay, the reason that I asked for, and I'm only speaking for myself, for a list of realistic things that are gonna be done with that money beforehand is because of how many seemingly promises were kind of made with the last levy passage. And I wanted to make sure that we had a plan for this money and how we were gonna spend it, and that it was gonna be spent well, and it was gonna be spent ethically, and it was gonna be spent responsibly.
Okay.
Which I trust that it's gonna be done. But I
Right.
just want it in paper, so that way, also, when we do eventually put this up for a vote for people, people aren't gonna look at it and go, okay, but why would we pass this? I want people to look
It's-
at it and say, oh yeah, I want the, I don't know, new furniture and
But
whatever.
it's a renewal levy, right? We're not giving any extra money. So if we don't renew the levy,
I thought it was
it has to come out of somewhere, right?
It was gonna be
Which-
1 to 2 mils extra. I was
No, no.
surprised.
It's a renewal levy.
Right, but I
right?
was surprised that it was renewal.
So
I thought we-
it doesn't, it's like maintaining the status quo.
Yes.
Right.
So if we
Same
don't
amount
put
of
it back
money.
on if we don't put it back on the ballot, basically the money has to come from somewhere, or we end up, I don't know, with Citizens on Patrol? I mean, I'm just asking.
No, I don't think, or at least my plan was never to not put the levy onto a ballot. My plan was always to do that. But I don't want it to get put onto a ballot and then have this brochure that's like, and when we pass this renewal, we're gonna get new furniture. Because that's
No.
kind of what the last one was presented as. I want it more as, hey, when we pass, so at the last meeting, we basically had this long discussion where we brought up the previous plans for the last renewal of this levy.
Right.
And there were giant plans about, like, oh, we're gonna get the tasers paid for by the levy, and we're gonna get the cameras paid for by the levy, and we're gonna get new furniture, and we're gonna get the porch to the safety building fixed, and we're gonna get this, and this, which are all wonderful things. My tone there wasn't meant to be mean. It was meant to be, like, you know, kind of unrealistic. It just wasn't realistic for a renewal, right? We totally agree. It wasn't realistic for a renewal. But I wouldn't want this renewal to get put up again and to be turned down because people are looking at this and going, it's a renewal. We can't buy new furniture with a renewal. We're keeping the status quo. So that's where my mind was. I didn't want this to get put up and be unrealistic, and for us to have unrealistic expectations of how this renewal is going to get spent. So I want something in paper that is realistic for me.
Okay, so let's just say he doesn't give us anything on paper. Or he writes down, you know, I'm gonna buy 5 chairs and I'm not gonna do another damn thing. Excuse my language. Then what? We're not gonna do a police levy? I'm just asking for a friend.
So how could you look your neighbors in the eye and say, I have no idea what they're gonna do with that money? I have
Well,
no idea why they want that money. I have
But
no
the
idea what
thing
the plan is.
What it is we should be doing is communicating with them as we go, right? Because we have this piece of paper, but this is not enforceable by us.
Well, but you're absolutely right. It's not. It should be enforced by the city administrator and the chief of police. But I guess where I was going at it from the perspective of accountability.
Right.
And I feel like I represent those 9,000 citizens out there.
Sure.
Because it's their money that's thrown into this pot.
Right.
So if I can't look at them and say, yes, your money was well spent, then maybe I don't support it.
Okay, but what is the alternative? Like, I think the approach we need to take is information. I mean, I understand accountability.
But then that's where we are. I want information.
Right, but we're kind of saying we're not gonna do a police levy if we don't have the information.
Whoa.
Because we have to pay for the police, right?
No, I didn't say no police levy with no information.
Well, the reason I think that's the perspective, no one actually said that, but that is the assumption when you bring it up in conjunction, like accountability in conjunction to us having to put the levy out there. So maybe it's just a separate conversation. Is that?
Right, I mean, I think
Why can't there be
okay.
justification behind the money?
I think that there should be justification, and I think
that's all I'm asking
I think that questions should be answered. I think information should be shared. However, I don't think we should say, like, we want this information or we're not going to do a levy. We have to pay for the police department.
Wouldn't the last 2 to 4 years of budget be a justification if they're not asking for extra?
Right.
What did we spend it on? That
Well,
would
not
be-
necessarily, not if there's stuff
If
in
it's not
there that the
going
money
up.
wasn't spent on. Do they still need that much? Maybe it's less if they're not doing the stuff that was in there. There's 2 sides to the coin. They're not asking for more, but maybe they need less. I don't know.
Another part of the discussion too
If
was that
if we don't know what they want the money for, how do we know how much they need?
Right, well, and
That's where I am.
I understand, but here's, okay, so I get it. I get the accountability, and I'm not suggesting that Ryan leave and say, I ain't telling y'all a doggone thing. I'm not suggesting that. However, what I am saying is that I don't know that, are we really gonna do a quid pro quo? Like, if you don't give us the information, then you don't need the money, or, I mean, obviously they need the money because they always go over budget.
Well, can we just cut through this? Do you have a presentation for us by any chance?
I don't have anything formal. I was asked to come here tonight on the February stats, but I've been the chief here for the last 6 years, so I have a pretty good understanding of what's been going on with the levy.
because at the last meeting we had asked for you and Ron to come up with kind of like a list of reasonable things that you guys are going to spend the renewal money on, which, I mean, if it is just maintaining the, salaries and this and that, that's fine,
Well,
but
And so I can answer to a little bit of that. I don't have anything formal for you tonight. But here's what I can tell you, and it's very important to keep that in mind when we're looking at all of it. I look at things in terms of capital improvement money or capital money, okay? And so when the levy started 9 years ago, there was supposed to be roughly $35,000 to $40,000 from that police levy that went towards capital improvement items. That money was supposed to be what was there to use for new cruisers, to use for all of the things that we're talking about, all of our wish list, the things that we needed to improve upon. Within 2 years, if you would, my first year, or 3 years, my first year as police chief, we had a bomb threat over at the schools. I arrested the school security guard, and within 1 week, I was told by the city administrator at the time and the school board that I needed to come up with a way to protect the schools. So within 1 week, I entered into an MOU, or Memorandum of Understanding, with the school to provide a school resource officer. That money had to come from somewhere, so automatically it came from the levy. With that split, which the universal, or the general rule of thumb is a 60-40 split just on salary alone, for the school paying 60% and the police department paying 40%. I'm sorry, but that doesn't include anything when it comes to insurance and the benefits, if you would. Those are all paid for by me. It all has to come from somewhere that was never planned originally from the levy. That has to come from the levy money. Okay? So when you roughly figure in that the industry average is, by the time you pay salary, by the time you pay benefits, roughly $100,000 a year for one full-time officer, and you factor in, it looks more like a 40% that we're paying, right? That eats into that $35,000-$40,000 that we had as capital improvement. That coupled with, over the years, inflation, right? Paying officers more, everything else. There just hasn't been any capital improvement money over the years to do all of those things that we sought out and wished to do. In a perfect world, I would have loved to have gotten all those things done. When we sat here last time, I tried to explain, and I tried to go down the list for you of all the things that we had done. And the things that we weren't able to do wasn't because I didn't want to or we didn't need them. It was because we didn't have the money to do it, and I was trying to be the best steward of the money and the budget that I was given. And so those things still need to be done. We still have plenty of needs. And in a lot of ways, yes, my folks and I were going to sit here and petition at this point for council and everybody to say we want more money for the levy so we can have a regular rotation and we can have all of those things in there. But we also felt that after the huge increase for the fire department that was very much needed, that we needed to take a back seat, and that this was not the right time to do that, because asking for an increase at this point, I think, is almost too much on the citizens to bear. But at the same time, losing 5 full-time patrolmen, including an SRO, and not having those resources available for the city is, I think, also too much to bear.
So to make this more clear, so the renewal of the levy money would be to maintain the salaries for 5 patrolmen, a student resource officer, and any possible capital improvements.
It would be 4 full-time patrolmen.
Sorry, 4
with an SRO, which would be the 5th position.
Okay.
Yes. And then anything left over, and that's the way I would phrase it, anything left over, we are going to try to prioritize those needs and try to accomplish any of those things that we can.
And I think that's reasonable. I mean, that's all we are really asking for. It's just for
Right.
And I think that I mean,
And because when
that's good for
yeah,
me.
when you look at it, and if you want, go back, please go back and look at the last 3 years of the and I think what you'll see is that 80 to roughly 90% of that is tied up in personnel costs.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I'm sorry, I was a little slow. I was hoping that we would be able to begin on a little bit of a different note because I did have some very good news that I wanted to share with the committee. But we just got this evening. But our assistant fire chief, Kenneth Caldwell, was promoted to assistant fire chief of the city of Cincinnati,
Oh, that's
which is
kinda
a
awesome.
huge promotion. And so I wanted to share that with the committee because I also think that it speaks to the quality of people that we have in our public safety departments. You all have heard me say this before. There are three things primarily that we have to do, that we have to get right. One is law enforcement and protection, fire suppression and EMS, and then, of course, our streets and roads. So I just
Mr.
think that this
Mosby,
is
I know Mr. Caldwell, and I am so happy for him. I'm gonna call him and say congratulations, but that's kind of changing the subject a little bit.
it is, because I wanted to
I
start
know.
off with that.
So I know about that because I do it all the time. That's what lawyers do. But I'm going to redirect us back to the police levy legislation because that's important. And we need to try to figure out whatever, I want us to fix whatever our issues are. So I think Ms. Anderson's has her questions answered, but Ms. Zorb maybe does not. So I want to make sure everybody has their questions answered.
I guess I'm just looking for a plan. If I'm walking through Kroger and somebody says, "Hey, Mary Jo, I hear the police levy's coming back up. What are they planning on doing with that money?" What am I telling them? Give me a 30-second spiel that I'm going to tell my neighbor in Kroger.
Ms. Zorb, I think that the easiest way to do it is to actually look at your current budget, and that would be your answer.
So that's
Because
what I'm
your
going to tell
budget-
my neighbor in Kroger?
Yes, because you actually vote for the budget, and so what you approve is basically what you're saying, this is what we're expecting to do with the money that we receive.
I would say if somebody asked me that, what I would say is to maintain the salaries for 5 patrol officers. That includes 1 student resource officer, right? Am I saying that right?
Yes.
Okay. And then the money that is left over, if there is any money left over, will be spent on capital improvements to the safety building. And that's what I'm gonna tell my neighbors when they ask me, because that's what Chief Strand, from what I understood, that's what, right? So that's what seems like, sorry, I didn't mean to, but that's what it seems, I mean, like Eric said, we're maintaining the status quo with the renewal. And so that's what it seems like to me, is this specific money is gonna be kept to maintain that.
I'm
specific.
afraid of that answer.
Why is that?
Because, and I hate to sit up here and spout Facebook, but there's a lot of negativity around the status quo of the police department.
Yeah,
So if I can't sell it, I'm afraid of it. I'm afraid it won't pass.
Well, I don't
I
think you
feel
can
like
have
I feel like I need something to sell.
But I also don't think that we can expect change without giving change. I mean, I don't think that we can expect the police department to change with maintaining the salary as how it is, or maintaining the levy as how it is. I think if we want change, then we have to kind of put the money where our mouth is.
I mean, let's face it, they have an image, you have an image issue. You do. In this neighborhood, in a lot of people's eyes, there's an image issue.
Now, it's interesting that you say that, Ms. Zorb, because I'll be honest with you, I talk to city administrators and sometimes former police chiefs from different areas, and actually when I hear them talk about our police department, it is not with an image issue. In fact, they actually say, considering where we are and what we deal with, the phrase that has been used, quite frankly, with me, is we are a small city with big city issues. But despite that, we handle those well. And I will actually say myself, because I appreciated something that Ms. Anderson just said, but our police department is transforming. We have just, in the time that you've been here and the time that I've been here, we've become a more diverse police department. That's clear. It speaks for itself. We have good trained police officers in our department. One of the challenges that we have sometimes is because of the fact that, as Ms. Anderson did say, because our salaries may not be as great as everyone else's, sometimes our officers are selected to go to other departments. So that in and of itself, even though we don't like to lose officers, but that other departments are looking at our officers for selection says something about I'm sorry, I know, this thing, I don't know why it does that. But that says something about the quality of the officers that we have hired and trained. Now, is that perfect? No, we've had some officers that we have amicably separated ways with because many of them did not live up to the integrity standards of compassion, the concern for the community. Now, that isn't a whole lot, but I do say that I would underscore the fact that the leadership in our department does take steps to make sure that we do maintain the highest standards for our police officers.
I would like to note something, though. You said that you talked to a lot of other city police officers and other city police chiefs and other city administrators. You didn't say once that you talked to our citizens who live in our city, who experience our police department, and who experience when they call the police department and say, my neighbor's doing this illegal thing, and somebody please come, and then nobody shows up. I heard a story that there were kids shooting a mail delivery person with an Orbeez gun at one of the parks over there by the school. They called the police, and the police never showed up. And so it's stuff like that where, like, yes, you hear from other administrators and from other cities that they really respect how we're doing that. And I respect that. I think that that's a huge accomplishment. But when you talk to our citizens, it isn't always the same story. Somebody recently asked me what I think public safety means. And public safety is an image. It's an idea. And if your people don't think that they're safe, even if it's the same level of crime, even if it's the same level of incidents, even if it's the same level of calls, if they feel safe, if they feel heard, if they feel like somebody's coming to their rescue, then there's going to be a different image of public safety than there is, you know, when you have somebody call and no police officers show up. So I get what you're saying. I also respect the administrators and police chiefs of other cities, and that's amazing that they think that we're doing such a great job, and I appreciate that. But I also want to take into account the people who live here, who experience our city.
Madam Chair.
I would like to also then, since you brought that up, and I appreciate that, I would like to also share an experience and then actually make a recommendation. Not too long ago, I went on a ride-along with our police officers. I'm sorry. I went on a ride-along with our police officers on a Friday night, very busy night. It was actually a football night. It was one of those nights where, of course, you have a lot of things that are going on. I saw everything firsthand from a very bad auto accident that was a result of a domestic violence situation where we literally had to go and do a search for the particular suspect. I was there when they were going to try to get something to eat. They couldn't because of the calls. They had 2 or 3 calls back to back. You know, driving along with them, I also saw the community relations that they had when we did respond to 2 other small accidents. They weren't serious accidents, but I saw how the people in the community came out and spoke glowingly of the officer that I was riding with. In this particular case, I happened to be riding with Officer Manning. And I saw that. I saw the care that they took when a car broke down in the middle of Galbraith Road to be able to help them so that they would be able to move their car off the street and be in a safe location to help them. You know, I would honestly like to recommend to the members of the committee and all the members of council to schedule a ride-along so that you can go out and you can actually be with them and experience what a shift is like for them. I think it's all, because I agree with you, Ms. Anderson. I also think it's one thing to look on the outside to look at something. I think it's a completely different thing when you're there and you're in the midst of it, because it actually helps you understand many of the things that they go through, many of the types of calls that they have to respond to on a daily basis. So I totally agree that whenever, and of course we live in a city of 9,600 people, and of course when you have that, you're actually going to have a myriad of responses and attitudes toward our police department. And I actually very much respect the fact that there are people who have had run-ins that would be, that would be considered negative, and that they might say things like that. But when I see the North College Hill Police Department on the news, for example, partnering with our businesses, to give away food or give away 200 turkeys as they did with Hair Palace on Thanksgiving, that's a good thing, I think. I think it puts forth a good image for our community. So I would like to recommend that to everyone if you haven't already done so, because I think it's a great learning experience.
Madam Chair.
Yes, Ms. Dukestein.
So I want to speak to a couple different things, and I may be a bit winded, but I think it's necessary. So I agree with both perspectives. I think that you're right when you look at it from a city administrator's perspective, and other police officers who are giving feedback. The feedback is positive. I myself have received some of that positive feedback. And I don't think that the job is, I don't think that you all are not doing what you're supposed to do. I do think that the image is negative. I had 3 people this week reach out to me to say condolences, and they also shared a story about some police stuff. Sometimes people reach out and it's not unattached to issues. So that's fine. But I think that both are there. And so then you say, what's the efficacy? What's the real story behind it? And so the truth is that this job is in some ways political, or else you would not be here talking to a group of people who are, trying to make sure that we have the right politics. So I think both are happening at the same time. And then it becomes our city's charge to kind of not people please, but satisfy that. And what are things that we can do? So back to this, voting on the renewal, which I completely support that we need to renew it. But we do need to help people understand, like food giveaways and the experiences that Mr. Mosby spoke of about caring for our people who have an accident, and then the 2 other sidebar accidents, that we are in a transition because our police look very different than they did a couple years back. So we have to keep that momentum. It doesn't matter if it's true. It matters of what we continue to perpetuate, because you're not just living down your image in your 6-year tenure. You're also have built a history that was before you. So in order to do that, we as a city have a responsibility to make sure that people are feeling accountable and willing to renew levies that support excellent policing. And so that's my 2 cents on it. It's not to damage anyone, but it's also to just be realistic about what's out there. Both sides are out there. So.
And I would say that we're not perfect by any stretch of the imagination, but we do strive to be our best. And there are 2 sides to every story.
Truth.
So, for example, Ms. Anderson and your side, right? I would wish that from now on, when you guys hear those things, please give them my email address, have them reach out to me so that I can try to if it's true and we didn't respond or something was that way, that I can fix that. Because I don't know about it. If I don't know about it, I can't fix it. Okay? In this case, I can tell you that there was some misinformation there because Officer Bolt responded. He talked to the mail carrier. The mail carrier said, they're just kids, I don't want to prosecute. And then he went over and spoke to the kids, told them how it was wrong, and then went and talked to their parents and managed to handle the whole situation without perpetuating an arrest or anything else to get it done. And there was a report on file and everything was taken care of. And then he moved on to the next details. So I don't know where that misinformation occurred, that we never showed up and we didn't take care of it. But I can tell you that if that was the case and we didn't show up, that I want to know about it. And if I don't know about it, I can't fix it.
So
But if it's not the case and we did show up and we did do our jobs right, it's also important for me to know about that so I can fix that before it snowballs out of control. And so in a lot of ways, that's the one thing that I could ask for, is that everybody realize that there are two sides to that story. And please feel free to have them reach out to me so that I can fix it, I can know about it, or I can fix that miscommunication before it snowballs out of control.
Well, I will say too, I mean, to speak to what Mary Jo was saying about change and how, you know, I don't think, okay, I am not a, like, defund the police kind of person, but I do think that most police departments have issues, fundamental issues. I don't think it's an North College Hill thing. I don't think it's an Ohio thing. I think it's an across our country thing. And I think every city is dealing with some of the same issues that we are. And I think what I have noticed is stuff that I've brought up, stuff that I've brought to your attention, stuff that I've complained about and that I've shaken my fist at. There have been changes and there have been things that you guys have done about that, and I've gotten answers and I've gotten responses. If it was the answer or the response or change that I wanted, that's totally besides the point. But I recognize the change and the effort that is being put into it. And I do stand by what I said. I mean, if we want drastic change to happen in the police department, you need drastic money for that. And this levy is not the drastic change that I want to, you know, in my world of dreams that I want to see for every police department. We don't have the money for that, and I don't feel comfortable asking our people for that. But to keep the slow and steady change that we've had going, and to keep the slow and steady, you know, positivity that we've had increase, I think that this levy is good for that. And I mean, I don't think that for my neighbor to expect, you know, a whole brand new police building because of a renewal, I don't think that that's realistic for them. And I don't think that any of my neighbors think that is what's going to happen with a renewal, personally. But I'm sorry, I know you were going to say something.
And I want to say, I wasn't saying that because I do agree there's two sides to every story. To me, to be transparent, I don't really care about that side. Like I'm saying, when we're addressing the image of it, I would love to not have to send issues to you. There are people, I have a boss that I report to, like on my employer. I don't send issues up every single time. I think what Mary Jo was saying in this is we have to be a united front because we're a team.
Mm-hmm.
And if I can stop issues from escalating out in the community, I would love to do that. Like, this is what they did, this is what they're gonna do, and here we are. I would love to be that advocate. So that would be my only reason. And I think we talked about this last time. That on that pamphlet is a wish list. And I remember even us talking about some of that being hindered by COVID, and we were trying to like deal with the dates and why that was applicable. If we could have something tangible to just kind of help with it, it's not going to change overnight. It's something that in some ways was inherited, but we have to work together at it. So my only reason for speaking to it is to kind of not focus on whether it's right or wrong, but to do what we can to help so that things like this are a non-issue and that we do create the ability to keep the momentum so that we can be everything that we aspire to be as a city and for you as a police department. So, that's my 2 cents.
So I'm gonna go back to Ms. Zorb.
What's everybody else picking on me?
Huh? What? Nobody's picking on you. Because I want us all to be, to somewhat agree, maybe not. We don't always agree, and that's a good thing, I think. But I just want to know like what your issues are, so we can try to have those addressed.
I feel like I've expressed, my biggest concern is I want to be able to give an explanation to Joe Citizen when they stop me and say, I can't believe we're gonna have another police levy when the police, in Joe Citizen's opinion, when the police don't do this and this and this. Why should I give them money? I have to have something to come back to them and say, well, you have to support this, because if you don't, we're not gonna have this, this, and this. I need to be able to have that conversation with Joe Citizen
Okay.
to be able to support it. And if I don't, if I look at that, what if Joe Citizen brings that to me and says, hey, this is what they told me they were gonna do, and I don't see that they did any of this.
What
So
if-
why should I support it again?
So,
What about the items that Marjorie listed? Is that not
Well,
sufficient?
Yes.
And again, what I will say to this, was this from the last time?
That was the last renewal.
This is not really realistic, but, I mean, that's just,
I didn't put it together.
I know,
They did.
but asbestos removal from the police department,
They
I
did.
mean,
That's done, isn't it?
is done.
Yeah.
They went through last meeting
I-
on the things that they were able to do,
Yeah.
things that
Okay.
they were working on,
And
things that
then-
fell by the wayside.
Yeah.
And that, when you look at it, you can see that it is a wish list. It
Yeah.
really
Right.
is, because it's very ambitious.
Yeah, that's
Right.
what I was, yeah, she just covered all
And
this.
even in terms of accomplishing it in the time frame, it's
Right.
ambitious.
Yeah, I was just like,
Even
I'm looking at
not
everything like, wow, that
considering
is
the
a
money.
lot. Okay, so, and then it doesn't, of course, address the issues that you can't foresee, like the bomb threat and the,
Right.
Oh.
Right. Well, and two, I mean, something else that was discussed is how technically this renewal isn't up, so there are still things that they're working on right now that would
And they-
fulfill this renewal.
And they talked about being able to get some of those done or in the works. So in order to continue that momentum,
Right.
we've gotta renew it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Um,
Okay.
Yeah.
so, all right, so it sounds like, I'm trying to understand. So you want the 30-minute or the 30-second spiel, right? So I know at least a part of the spiel is that we're paying for, with that levy, 4 officers plus the school resource officer. I know we're paying for that. And, there are some other things, obviously, that we do need to work on or make, to make things better. But as far as just having it, I would rather not lose, I want us to, I don't know, renew, you know what I mean, renew the levy. So, and I kind of feel like, Ms. Blythe, I haven't heard from you, that's not good.
No, when I first mentioned it, I just said to look at the last 2 or 3 years of the budget. I said it at the beginning of the meeting.
Okay.
The renewal is for the budget, the things that they've spent it on for the last 2 to 4 years, so I commented first.
Okay.
Well, and I think too, we already always like wag our finger at how much the police take of the general fund. So I mean, do we really want them to
Take
have
more?
to take more?
No.
Right.
I mean, I don't want Mary Jo to say that either, that's not a good answer, like. Okay,
I won't.
okay.
I won't say that.
But I think
She might.
to kind of help, like, for me, when the one particular person, that said something to me, I would have said, oh, that they, got a officer in the school because of the event, like, that would have been, had we had that information last time, not saying that we were just putting it on the table.
Right.
And to have that tonight helps to put out a fire. I think putting out the fires and moving it in a more positive PR is all of our responsibility.
Right.
And
And
having that
yeah.
information would have helped that.
And to her point,
And I'm gonna go
that's
back,
why I
by the way.
keep asking for information. It's not because I want to do a got you moment. It's literally so that I can say, you know what, here is what is going on. Or I can say, I would love to be able to say, like, actually, there were only 2 of this kind of thing in North College Hill. in the last 6 months. You are mistaken. That happened in Mount Healthy. That did not happen in North College Hill. So I know for me, that's why I asked for the information, because when people say, you know, it's not safe, and I'm like, really? Well, what street did that happen on? What color was the street sign? You know it's not North College Hill if it's a blue sign versus a green sign. That's how I delineate.
And I'm
for
sorry
people.
for the confusion. The only reason it wasn't done is because I thought we were going back and forth on trying to arrive at what exactly we wanted.
Right,
And that was my fault, so.
We want information
Yeah.
for these reasons, like the whole school resource officer bomb thing. No knowledge of that, because,
And I remember that incident, so it makes sense,
Right.
and I remember the officer coming after that.
And it was something that we had to adjust to on the fly because of the way things just happened. It's kind of like in the brochure, when the levy first started, we didn't know we had asbestos in the building. And we literally had to tape up with, like plastic,
Right, those like giant tarps.
the giant tarps.
I remember
that
when you guys had to
section,
do
that
that.
section for almost a year and a half before we even had the money to be able to do the proper asbestos abatement and
Right.
removal.
So do you see just how that quickly turned the room? I mean, for me, because like you talked about getting another officer for the schools.
Right.
That was a split between your budget and the school's budget, 60-40. Removing asbestos, which is a last minute add to that sheet. We're already in pretty good stewardship of that money.
Right, just a levy for one of those things would make sense. But to cover both of those and then on top of it, 4 more officers, but.
And so, again, and I guess I just have to go back to my recollection. On those things, when I put that together, I was asked to put things down that were tangible, and I was asked to put down a wish list in somewhat of an order of priorities. And what happens sometimes is when I made that list, the beginning of those priorities are the 5 full-time officers and the level of service that we're able to provide. Anything we get outside of that, I put back into when I started my conversation, I said I look in terms of capital improvement items and money, right? And I start down that wish list when we can. Because without that, I can't be the best steward of the money that I'm given. And
Yeah,
so
'cause-
that's what we're trying to look at. And so I can put that together, and I don't have one inkling or an issue of putting that together. I just want to make sure that we're all on the same page, that that's what it is.
Yeah.
It's a wish list, and that if the money is available, that I will start working towards that list. It doesn't mean I'm ever going to be able to accomplish it.
Because we had also talked about last time, was it grant that you received for the tasers?
The body cameras.
Or the body cameras, right. And then we had bought some, and then we got some new ones, and then that was on that wish list. But we didn't talk about the 60-40 split with the officer at the school. So it creates just a clearer picture of
Right.
actually good spending as opposed to not so good spending. And that momentum needs to be communicated. I mean, again, it's about making sure we have the right image and doing the right things behind the scenes. So if we're all moving in that direction, then we need to let that transpire is what I'm trying to say.
Well, and I think too, it's important to make it clear that, like, what is a wish list and what is actually the money going to be spent on, because I don't think it's fair to set our expectations that high and our citizens' expectations that high, especially if we want this levy to be renewed or increased ever in the future. I think it's like, I think about it in terms of, like, I don't know, if I'm setting up my kids for their next standardized test, I'm not going to be like, oh yeah, you're going to score a 100 on this one. I'm going to be like, you're going to score a 60. Then when they score a 70, it's a donut party. That kind of thing, you know? You don't want to let people down. So I think if you are going to put something like that together, I personally wouldn't like to see the wish list on there, just because I think that'll kind of send the wrong message.
Realistic expectations.
Right. All I'm looking for is just realistic
Attainable
expectations.
goals.
It doesn't have to be a brochure. It can just be like just like a press release. I don't know if that makes sense, or like a Facebook post of like, hey, this levy's coming up. Here's what we're, planning on spending the money on if it is passed.
Yes.
Right. That's what he had said.
Right.
That's why I just want to make sure. Right. No. Yes.
Right.
Thank you for, yeah.
And was, and I was gonna ask, based on what her, Mayor Nichols' comment is, was that the first time that the levy had went in place?
No, that was a renewal.
That was also a renewal?
That was a
Cause
renewal.
you'll find, I mean, the trend will change.
Right.
People will ask for different things as just the trend, the community changes. I saw that when I was coming into council, like, people like real. I want real change. Some people like pie in the sky, and so we're at renewal time, coming up, and we're saying this is what we think needs to happen based on where the community is. I don't think it's a circumstance of merit on your part. I think it's just being clear so that we can shift PR in the right direction.
Well, and if I could be blunt at this point, I can say that our priorities for right now are the top priority is keeping the level of service that we have, and to do that, it means we have to keep those 5 full-time officers, and one of those includes the SRO.
Right.
I haven't had a school resource officer in the school this year because of how short-staffed we are, and I don't want to make that 2 years in a row. I believe in that relationship and that collaborative effort. I think it's worked out really well for us ever since we were kind of thrust in there at the last minute. And I think it's a great opportunity for a large portion of our population to see us and not in strictly enforcement role. And Lieutenant Petrucelli's here; he can comment on that. That's been one of my things, is to have the SRO be in the schools and to do more demos and more public speaking and more other things to get to the folks, unfortunately, when we're not called 911 and have to be the bad guys. And I think that's very important for us and our image going forward, to have that type of relationship. And I think that's one of the reasons why I've been so adamant about keeping that SRO and keeping the levy for that position. The next thing I think on our wish list, if you would, is for whether it comes from the levy or it comes from potentially the tow lot, is to get a rotation that we've so graciously started for our cruisers. Our cruisers, right now the newest one that we have in our fleet is a 2016. And that may not seem like a lot, but 70,000 miles on a car for a police cruiser may not seem like it's terrible compared to your personal vehicle. But for those who are driving it, when our mechanics down at Woody Sander Ford say that the idle time on that engine, just from it just sitting, running traffic, or just idling, has close to what they would equate to equivalent of 300,000 miles on them, because they're just constantly idling, not running, the cars break down. I mean, I did an exit interview with one of the officers who left to Coleraine, and that's one of the reasons he was leaving. He was going to Coleraine next door for more money, and because when he went to make a felony traffic stop on somebody who was wanted with potentially armed, the car broke down. Okay,
That's kind of funny.
Yeah.
It's not funny, but
It's funny now. It wasn't funny to him, obviously, but that's why some of those are our priorities. And I guess that would be a real simplistic wish list from me, is to keep those 5 full-time officers, to to provide some type of structure and stability and long-term plan for a cycle, if you would, turnover for our vehicles so that we can keep our fleet functional. And then aside from that, honestly, just putting money into the less lethal technology so that they have the tools to make good outcomes instead of, other things, right?
Okay. Well, Chief, what I would like to ask is if we could keep the open line of communication and information, because I think that it seems like, to me, like the temperature has changed a lot from when I first heard about this. And I would just like to, I think, hopefully you understand better why we need the information, because then that way we can better respond when people approach us and ask us questions, or even, when there's some kind of like, what are you gonna do about XYZ? And I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about. So I think that if we have information, and sometimes I have information, if I'm watching the news and I'm like, that street is not in North College Hill, so there, but if I know for myself, that's why I'm asking, because I think we have a relatively safe community, and I think that there's some misinformation going on there with regard to crimes and where they occur and, how they happen. And I know that maybe, there were X number of felony arrests, but where was our officer when they made the arrest? Were they in North College Hill, or did they go down the street to Springfield Township, or did they go down the other street to Coleraine Township? Because I think it matters, because when we get a number like, these officers made 7 felony arrests, but maybe they didn't make those arrests in North College Hill. And again, the reason I know that is because I'm in the courthouse and I'm like, but that didn't happen in North College Hill. But there's an officer who has a North College Hill uniform on, and I'm like, oh, that's what's happening. It's not that it happened here. So that's kind of why I keep like, we need information, we need information, we need information, because it's like I'm seeing one thing at the courthouse, and I'm like, that, it's just not reflective in the information that we have.
Can I ask something that's sort of kind of related, but not really? Or should I save it for new business?
No, you go ahead.
Okay. So I know a while ago, we were looking at like the open accounts, and it was like this paper, and it was talking about the restricted funds. Remember when we were talking about restricted funds, and there was something for the police, and I said, hey, would you mind looking into what we can spend this money on? Because there's restricted funds that could only be spent in the police department on certain things. And then it totally just slipped my mind until right now for some reason. Was that ever looked into?
Well, of course, as you point out, the levy those funds are restricted funds. There are also forfeiture funds, and I'm not sure that, I was wondering if maybe that's what you were thinking about. Then the forfeiture funds, we did use some of those to purchase actually pistols for the police officers.
Okay, because I remember
That was the most recent expenditure.
Because I know, like, when it originally happened, you were like, oh, yeah, we haven't really used that money because it can only be used on X, Y, and Z. And then I said, well, can you look at what X, Y, and Z is? And you were like, oh, yeah. So, okay, as long as I know it's not money that's just sitting there doing nothing, but it's being spent.
Correct. It's not to be clear, it's not money. When we receive forfeiture money, it's sporadic. In other words, we don't know when that's coming in. And so that's why in certain cases, if it's not enough, if it's like $700, maybe that's not enough to buy. In the case that we just had, we used that money to buy, I think we bought, what was it, 5? Okay, I'm sorry. So 5 handguns for our police officers.
Makes sense, thanks.
Okay, so can we safely now put this on the agenda so we can get this done?
That works for me personally.
Ms. Blythe.
I don't know what you're asking for.
Can we move the police levy to the council agenda?
so that we can possibly pass it or deny it. If we pass it,
Add this to the agenda, okay, sure.
All right. So there was also, I know we have a lot of old business, including Prospect Place. But there's some new business. I'm going to skip over that for just a moment to new business because I believe Ms. Dukestein had a question for something for clarification. So I'll let her start and then we'll try to see if we can't get it figured out.
So I wanted to kind of talk about the motion that we did not, it was a motion that we didn't pass on the repair of the street, because we're talking about the streets in this committee. I didn't say anything there because I was actually a bit shocked that it didn't pass, and I don't think it's too late. Is it too late to talk about it again or to motion it in a different way again?
No, it's not too late.
So, geez, for me, like, I'll say this from a personal standpoint because I was just kind of thinking about it. And Ms. Dewald had some comments that I'm not going to put on the table because she's not here. But she had shared a bit why she didn't support it. And so the reason I supported it, and I hope this helps to kind of just bring clarity to what I think is the right movement for how we handle finances for things like this, is I have a credit card that has no interest on it. I try to live my life as debt-free as possible. But it has, like, I always try to keep one that doesn't have interest for a very, very long time, right? And then I kind of use that to navigate in a way, because timing is everything when you have money. And so I wasn't sure as to what the opposition was, because if we're gonna owe the money either way. So what is the opposition for not exhausting no interest? I don't know that I agree with the term free money, but it is good money. And it gives us a little bit of wiggle room in our finance budget. So I guess I'm just putting it back out there because maybe it yields some discussion or something that I'm missing that doesn't make sense to why we shouldn't do it. But I feel like getting our streets in repair sooner than later and being able to pay that over time, let's say, because there's also things that I saw that happen, just, again, I'm bringing it down to a personal level. Like, I ended up doing some things and making some different investments, and I was able to pay off things sooner, and then I was just able to use it to do something else, which I see that all as a benefit. Is there something else that you guys are seeing in that would not be agreeable to passing it? Because I guess I don't want to question your logic, but for me it seemed like a very good thing. So I bring it up.
You want to talk or I want to talk?
I can talk first when you want, why I originally did one too, and that might clarify some of yours. Or do you want to go first?
So I did vote no. I'll go first.
Okay.
So I voted no. And at the time, it was because I could not wrap my head around the explanation that was being provided. So if I don't understand it, I'm not going to support it because that makes common sense to me. That's just the way I live my life. So the other thing that, and I'll even throw this out there. Since then, I have spoken to somebody else who was able to explain it to me differently, and I would support it at this point. And to be honest, I sent Mr. Mosby an email the next morning, letting him know that. So
Okay, I'm
he
sorry,
does
I
know
didn't know
that.
that.
No, and that you didn't have to. I'd send him an email the next morning. But there is one thing that is still lingering in my head that I'm still questioning, and that is taking out a 30-year loan for something like blacktopping a street, because it's gonna have to be blacktopped again before we ever pay for it. And to me, there's some rationale in there that I'm still struggling with, but I could probably get past it.
And
Or,
the
or
reason,
maybe there's a compromise in there where we get it, I don't know, how long does this street even last? Does it last 15 years? Maybe we can get a 15-year loan. I don't even know if there's any, yeah, is there any wiggle room in something like that?
I don't know if there's any wiggle room, but
Because the other side of that coin is, now we have two loans paying for the same street.
Right, I see what you're saying.
And to me, that sounds like it's not a smart way to spend the people's money.
I just,
I don't know.
for me, actually going to the streets and looking at it and realizing, again, and what I also want to explain to all of you is that living inside of my head is like, I cannot.
Scary?
It is scary, because it's just like, when I see snow on the ground, I don't see snow, I see natural accumulation of snow. And if I shovel it and you fall, I'm responsible, but if I don't shovel it and you fall, then you're responsible.
I think the
And
same way.
all of that goes through my head in like seconds, and it's like, 'cause you can't I can't, like, I was trained that way, and I can't, like, undo it. So when I see somebody, like, reach into a window of somebody's house and steal a purse, you might say, I see somebody stealing a purse. I see somebody breaking the plane of a home. That's a burglary. It's an F2. You're 2 to 16. That's what runs through my head, and I can't, like, you know what I mean? I can't think that, you know what I mean? So I'm trying to get to my point. So when I see the streets, right, and they're in disrepair, all I see is really pothole, damages car owner reaches out to North College Hill. We are responsible for the damages to the car. There's case law that says it. We are absolutely responsible.
Not till
And-
after it's reported.
Huh?
Not till
Right,
after we know
well,
about it.
Yeah, but those streets are bad.
Not till after
And
we know
even like
about
in an ethical way, would you really want?
and that's where I'm at with it, to fix
Yeah.
it sooner than later because of the ethics behind
Right.
it. So I'm glad to know that you at least support it. And you said getting past like the 30-year, I'm there, but that's our responsibility to manage. Like, I don't exhaust that whole time on one budget. Actually, I pay it off and then I use it again, and I pay it off and I use it again. That may not necessarily be what we have going on here, but I think we have to figure out what's going to be. We have to just talk about the financial fitness of our city. So Ms. Blythe, again, you're not saying much, and I know you said no. You don't want to talk about it, or?
No, it's just not a good financial thing for me. 30 years is just too long for something that has bad depreciation like that.
Yes.
Right, we're city council. If we really want it paid off tomorrow, we can motion administration
Yeah,
to
'cause
pay it
the
off
money's there.
tomorrow. Yeah.
And that's what I was trying to get at.
That 747 or whatever it is that 747. You're not getting anything added to it. If you say, okay, we got extra money this month, that's gonna cut you to 15 years. If you bump it up to another whatever, it's gonna cut it. It doesn't have to be 30 years, but it's for the betterment of the community. Right. Because just like you said, I'm pulling up a car in the city of Cincinnati, and who has to fix it? On a pothole. Not me.
My friend, she just hit a pothole so bad it broke her axle or strut or something. It was a lot of work. So I don't know. I don't think this is a platform to like try to convince you if you feel very strongly about it. But I guess it is the platform to have the conversation so that we can work through whatever issues there are to kind of forward think in terms of our finances. That's the
We
reason
already
why.
had a discussion about this 6 to 8 months ago.
So I'm gonna
And I spoke about how I felt about it, so I'm fine. I'm only one council member, remember that.
Yeah, but we're here. We're here. That's
But I don't feel like discussing it again because I said what I stated when we were doing, was it Prospect Place?
Prospect
So
Place.
It's just something I don't agree with. And I'm 1 out of 7. So
Okay.
6 say yeah, 1 says no, boom, it goes through. That's why we all have different opinions and see things different ways. If we all thought alike, it wouldn't be good.
No,
And I
totally
agree with
agree
that
with
too,
that.
but I do want to hear other perspectives, because I
Right.
think that
And that's where
it
I'm
helps
at.
me to understand and grow, because there are
Right.
some things that I felt one way about that Ms. Zorb changed my mind about. So I think it's good to hear other perspectives.
Here's the
Well,
thing, here's
that's-
the thing with me, if I feel strongly about something, I'm gonna let everybody know, because I just, put out a letter about, trying to change the rules. What was that they were trying to change with that waiver? So if I feel strongly about something, you're gonna hear from me. Where we were trying to do the
Oh,
HR thing,
your
yes.
opinion letter
Yes.
about the salary ordinance.
Yes.
She
So when I
emailed it to
feel
us.
strongly enough about something, I'm gonna let you know.
But you,
So-
and that's why I was asking you, like, not to put your, your opinion or
Opinion.
perspective on the table for judgment.
It's too long, and I don't think it takes away from the yearly budget, the monthly budget. It's just too long for something depreciative like a street.
So
And
would you
that's
be
it.
amiable if we were to shorten the time, which is what
Yeah,
Mayor Nichols was saying?
Yeah, make it 5 years. That would work.
We would still have, wouldn't we still have to take out the 30-year and then just pay it off in the 5 years? Because that's what's being offered to us?
I can ask them about that. They offer it, I think the point is that they offer it up to 30 years. It could also be 15, 10. There
think
are
on-
different timeframes.
Do you think that 5 years does that give us a good amount of grace?
Well, I think if I go by what I heard many of you on council saying, I would do it best by giving this example. Let's say we have $100,000 in our street fund. $100,000 won't even fix one street, right? That same $100,000, and I'm using the 30 years, that same $100,000 on the payback schedule that we were talking about would be able to do 8 streets the size of Loran and Dordogne.
And that's what I think in terms of trying to maneuver finances. It just helps to be able to have some wiggle room even if we don't exhaust it. So I don't know.
Yeah, and I think too, I mean, like how I went into this, I mean, I had my ideas of how it was, but they were misinformed ideas. And so coming out of it, I had an entirely different opinion, not because anybody sat there and tried to persuade me, but because I asked questions and I listened and I expressed my opinion, then they expressed theirs, and then I made a reasonable decision after. I don't think that conversation is unimportant, and I don't think that it's anybody sitting here trying to convince you of anything. I think it's important as a human being to listen to other people's ideas and to grow your ideas or your opinions from that. I mean, I'm not an expert on money, and I'm not an expert on streets, and I'm not an expert on governments. I'm an expert on second graders. So I'm gonna listen to all of everybody else's opinions.
You're the person that brought it up. No, I'm
So,
joking.
just saying. So I'm gonna listen to everybody else's opinion on this because I don't have an expert opinion. I'm gonna base my opinion on the facts. And my thoughts of the facts, my ideas of what were facts before the last meeting were way different than what is actually the fact. So that's why I personally changed my opinion, because I totally thought that the street money came from way somewhere else, and that I had a totally different idea of what the street fund money was. So now that I understand what it was, That's why I decided, okay, yeah, duh, the loan makes sense. But I had thought that it was a different process for paying for the streets. So that is why I changed my opinion.
Can I
So
jump in
Mr.
real quick? Sorry.
Sure, absolutely.
Speaking of expert opinions, Mr. Mosby, would you be able to ask the engineers what the typical length of time is for a street to have to be repaved again? Is there some type
No,
of?
there's not. You can't do it like that, Ms. Orr. And there's several reasons. Number one, if you look at, for example, let me give you Prospect. Prospect has, I believe, maybe 12, maybe 14 houses on the street. If they repair that street and do a good job, that street could last easily for 25 years, 30 easily, right? Because basically the only traffic you have going over that would be the cars of the cars that belong to the residents that live there. You have some, perhaps a mail truck. You would have the Rumpke truck. As much different than a Galbraith Road or a Hamilton, where you have trucks, buses, all kinds of heavy vehicles that are running over those. The wear and tear on a particular street is what determines the need to replace, repair from time to time. So to try and ask that question, you wouldn't be able to get a set answer.
Even if it was just, obviously, Hamilton and Galbraith are a whole different ball of wax. But, so there's no even rough estimate what it would cost, what that turnaround time is on a residential street?
Mr. Mosby, can we just ask the question? And if they say we don't have an answer for you, then that's what they tell us. But can we ask them and just see what they say?
Sure.
Yes.
Is it in disrepair? It's not in disrepair.
So,
So what is that?
According to Google, concrete
14.
roads
That's
offer an
16 years
expected
ago.
service, offer an expected service of roughly 25 years. Asphalt roads provide are likely to last approximately 18 years. That's only Google, but if that helps you give a
Thank you.
ballpark.
It
You're welcome.
does. It does. Thank you very much.
All right.
The expert
I-
Google.
Google,
Who knows all?
Madam Chair,
will you?
what I can tell you is that as I've gone through this process with our engineers, I can tell you that even to the mayor's point, there are some streets that we didn't have any record of them being repaired at all, which would be over 35 years. Sundale, I can't, they didn't have any record of it, and I will tell you that I've talked to some of the residents there, and they said, I've lived here 40 years, and this is the first time I've seen our street being repaired. So I don't know that that's why I said that before, but
Right.
those are
Well,
that's
I
an
mean,
example.
If asking a question and getting an answer helps us kind of get to a better place, I would just ask if we could just ask the question. And if they tell us, like, you know what, there's no answer for that, or they give us a lawyer answer, which is not an answer. I mean,
No, I mean, no, and that's what I'm trying to say. The answer that they've given me was not a lawyer answer. It was that basically we need to look at what they try to do is look at the wear and tear on a street.
you do realize I'm going to keep asking you the same thing until you say, yes, I'll ask.
Can you ask them, please?
And so okay, sorry about that. I've already asked on more than one occasion. And those were the responses that I was giving you when I asked them, because I've done a couple of cycles of these road improvement plans with them, with our engineers.
Will you ask how long it might last for Doradine or Lorian?
Sure.
Thank you. Okay, so it is 8:45, and I always try to honor everybody's time, and we didn't get through our agenda. I apologize for that. Is there any burning need or issues that anybody has today? Uh-oh, I got a hand there. Okay.
It might be a quick one.
Okay.
Mr. Mosby, I know we talked about the bridges, and I forget what we called them, not ruffles.
The street, the speed bumps?
No, she's talking about
Rumble
the.
tracks.
Yeah, they're
That's
called
it.
rumble strips,
Rumble
yes.
strips.
Did you want any type of legislation for us? Are you moving
No, the first
forward
thing
with
I'm
that, or
doing
what-
is.
What are we doing with that?
Well, we're looking, I'll be honest, I'm working with them to kind of look at the efficacy of installing those on there, and then I can bring that information back before we, or at least to give you a recommendation, I'll put it that way, before a decision is made on it.
So you're not waiting for anything from council? is
Oh, no,
really-
no, no, no. I've
Okay.
already talked to the
Perfect.
engineers about it.
Thank you.
So, I have one. Can we bring this back to,
Oh, absolutely. I'll put it next to speed cushions.
no, I'm talking about the prospect.
Oh, is my,
Oh.
yeah, you mean bring back up Prospect Place? You know, that's never leaving my agenda until we do something.
I think I'm talking about,
Oh.
is it,
Lori
Loran
and
and
Dordogne.
Dordogne.
yeah.
Can we fix it with them? Oh, okay.
I
Actually,
mean,
that doesn't
honestly, you
have to
don't
happen.
need
Yeah,
a
that doesn't really
motion.
have time.
I mean, the motion was just to have him do the legislation. He could do
Okay.
legislation.
Well,
Right, but it was to get a
can we
feeler.
request, I would like to request the legislation
Yeah.
relating to Loran, Dordogne, and Prospect Place,
Yeah.
please.
So, Madam Chair, hopefully this will make you feel more comfortable, but I've already talked to the law director about having that legislation prepared for the council meeting.
Because since then, previous council members that had voted no have come back and said, you know what, I rethought it and learned
At
more."
least one, but Miss, DeWald is not here today.
She's not.
But I
That's-
do know that she may have, I don't wanna speak, but I do think she may have had some other conversation, cause she and Christian were talking about it afterwards, and I feel like they were leaning differently, but I'm not sure, so.
But I am working on that, yes.
Okay. And if you can include Prospect Place, and then I would appreciate that.
Actually, no, that's a good question, but Prospect Place is already, that one is one that we are working on that's already being prepared. Now, the Loran and Dordogne, by approving this, what we are, and so let me slow down. By approving the loan for Loran and Dordogne, you would be saying that, yes, you would be accepting loan money for a project in 2023, because that's when Loran and Dordogne would be done. Prospect Place, I will confirm, but I do believe that that is one that will be 2023 or at the latest 2024.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry, can you repeat that last part again? Sorry.
So, Madam Chair was asking about what we're doing for Prospect Place.
Sorry, did you say that Loran and Dordogne will be in 2024 or Prospect?
No. Loran and Dordogne will be 2023.
Okay.
And then Prospect Place is either 2023 or 2024, but I can confirm that for the next council meeting.
Thank you. Any other burning issues?
Oh, I've talked to Mr. Cole to begin to have those put out in the spring.
Wait, what was your question? I'm sorry. I was typing. I didn't really hear.
When they were gonna deploy them.
For what to be up? Sorry.
Speed humps.
Speed humps. Thank you. Yeah. I love those little kids that play though. They're sweet. They do. Oh, they play chicken with you. Yeah. But have you seen? Yeah. Those kids will test you.
So it is 8:50. Thank you all for your time, energy, and attention. Our meeting is officially adjourned. Thank you.